Alrighty, so today we're going to be looking at Unit 1, Notes number 7, and we're going to be clearing fractions. Okay, so today our goal is I will be able to solve an equation with multiple fractions. Alrighty. So looking at our first example, this method that we're going to use for getting rid of the fractions is called clearing fractions. So our goal today is actually to take an equation with a bunch of fractions and get rid of them. So clearing fractions. And that's going to be our goal today, is to get rid of those. So our very first step for clearing fractions, step number 1, is to circle the largest denominator. And remember, the denominator is the number on bottom. Okay, so we're going to circle the largest denominator. In this one, there happens to only be 1. Okay, so we're going to circle the largest, which is 3. Okay, so that's step 1. Pretty easy step. Step number 2 is multiply all the numerators, remember that's the number on top, and whole numbers by that number. Okay, so that's our second step, is multiply all the numerators and whole numbers by that number. So what this looks like is I'm going to put this entire piece in parentheses, the entire equation in parentheses. And I'm going to put that 3 on the outside, and I'm going to multiply all the pieces by the 3. I am drawing the lines because we need to remember to multiply everything by the 3, not just some things, everything. Okay, so we're going to have 2 times 3 gives me 6 over 3x, plus 4 times 3 gives me 12, equals 2 times 3, which is 6. And then step number 3, third step, is reduce if necessary. So we got to reduce anything. Okay, well, 6 divided by 3 gives me 2x. And then 12 doesn't reduce, so plus 12 equals 6. Notice I don't have any more fractions. Okay, so now I can just solve like normal. And I am good to go. Okay, so after we get to here, we would just solve like normal. We're not going to solve that one, but the next two we will actually finish solving. So if I look at my first problem, 2/3 x minus 1/6 equals 10. Whereas step number 1 is circle the largest denominator, which is 6. 6 is obviously larger than 3. From here, we're going to multiply all the numerators and the whole numbers by that number. So the 2, the 1, and the 10. 6 times 2 gives me 12 over 3x minus 1 times 6 gives me 6 over 6 is equal to 10 times 6 equals 60. So from here, I'm just going to reduce. 12 divided by 3 gives me 4x. 6 divided by 6 gives me minus 1 equals 60. Now, I don't have any more fractions. We are all done. We're good to go, so we can just solve like normal. So I'm going to add the 1 over. That'll cancel out, so we'll have 4x is equal to 60 plus 1 gives me 61. We're going to divide out the 4. So we'll get x is equal to 61 divided by 4 does not reduce. Okay, so we can have two options. We can just leave it as 61/4, so 61 over 4, or you can rewrite it as a decimal, which is 15.25. All right. So looking at number 2, very similar question. We have 6/7 x plus 1/3 equals 2. We're going to start by circling the largest denominator, okay, which is the 7, and then we're going to multiply all the tops by the 7. So 6 times 7 gives me 42 over 7x plus, what's the next one? 1 times 7 gives me 7 over 7, not 7, wow, 3, is equal to 2 times 7 gives me 14. So now we have to reduce. 42 divided by 7 gives me 6x plus 7 over 7 doesn't reduce, so we just leave it, equals 14. Well, at this point, if we're looking at this, like, we still have a fraction, okay? So the method didn't work. So anytime we try this method, it doesn't work, we still have a fraction, that's whenever we just have to start over, okay? So we're going to do the process all again, okay, to try and get rid of that fraction. So we circle the largest denominator, which is 3. Put the whole thing in parentheses. And we're going to multiply all the tops by the 3. So 6 times 3 gives me 18x plus 7 times 3 gives me 21 over 3 equals 14 times 3 gives me 42. Now I can reduce and try again. So I'll have 18x plus 21 divided by 3 gives me 7 is equal to 42. And now I can actually solve like normal because now I have all whole numbers. I'm good to go. So we're going to subtract the 7. We'll get 18x is equal to 42 minus 7 gives me 35. We're going to divide out the 18. 35 divided by 18 does not simplify. So we'll just leave it as 35 over 18. Or you can write it as 35 divided by 18 gives us 1.94 repeating. So you can write it like that as well. All right. So now we're just going to have some review questions. Okay, if you have questions about those fractions, please make sure you're asking. Now we're just going to be looking at those review questions. We have 2x minus 6 is greater than negative 8 plus 3x. We're just going to solve for the x and get it all by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting the 3x over. This will cancel out. 2 minus 3 gives me negative 1x minus 6 is greater than negative 8. And then I'm just going to solve for the x. So I'm going to add the 6 over. That will cancel. I'll have negative 1x is greater than negative 8 plus 6 gives me negative 2. Divide out the negative 1. And I'll get x is less than negative 2 divided by negative 1 gives me a positive 2. Remember, when we divide by that negative number, we have to flip that inequality. Okay, so the 2 is going to go in the middle. Since it is just less than, it gets a shade or unshaded dot. I need 2 numbers that are bigger, 2 numbers that are smaller. I want everything that's less than 2. So I'm going to shade the 0 and the 1 because those numbers are less than. Yes, you need to have an arrow at the end to show that it goes on and on forever. Alrighty. If you have any questions about that front page, let me know. Now we're flipping over to the back. We're actually going to skip number 4. Congrats, we're skipping number 4. You guys have been doing awesome with your word problems, so we're going to skip that one. Then we have number 5. Says solve V is equal to LWH for W. So we want to get the W by itself, so I'm going to underline that. Between the L, the W, and the H is all multiplication, so we're going to divide out the L and the H. So we're going to divide this side by LH and this side by LH. These cancel, which is great. So I'll have volume divided by length times height, or LH, is equal to W. All right. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. If not, you can move on to your assignment.